my name is Alexis and this is Branches. Welcome. In this channel I discuss everything genealogy, and today's video is going to be about Thomas Nicholas Plunkett, who was born in Indiana in 1885. Let's get into it. Thomas was born June 19, 1885 in Advance, Boone County, Indiana, to the parents of Jesse Garrett Plunkett and Sarah Jane Beckleheimer. His father was a farmer, and Thomas had a total of about 6 siblings. In the 1900 census, he is listed as being 15 years old in the home of his parents. He was attending school and could read and write at the time. The family was living in Hendricks, Indiana at the time of the census. In the 1910 census, he was 25 years old, still living in his parents' household in Hendricks, Indiana again, and his occupation was evangelist, so he was a minister at that time. He moved to Louisiana sometime between 1910 and 1912 because in October 2nd, 1912, he married Pearl Marie Couvion in Rapids, Louisiana. And I do know that the marriage was not well received because he was not Catholic. She came from a very strict Catholic family. Obviously, being Louisiana, they are Cajun. They're a Cajun family. And so that didn't, that wasn't great. But I do know that eventually they did work things out, which is good. Thank goodness they did. 2 years later, they were living in Texas, and they gave birth in 1914 to their first child, who is my great-grandmother, Agelia Pearl Jane Plunkett. 3 years later, 1917, at the age of 32, Thomas had to register for the World War I draft. His residence at this time was in Pierce County, Washington, so they had moved from Texas to Washington by this point. And on the draft document, it states his occupation is being a minister, of course, and that's likely why they moved around so much. He is of medium height, medium build, with black hair and brown eyes. In 1920, Thomas's father, Jesse Garrett Plunkett, passed away, and they also had moved to Baker, Oregon. Now, 2 years later, in 1922, Thomas and his family moved to Seattle, Washington, where they remained for the rest of his life. In 1924, at the age of 38, he and his wife gave birth to a second child, another daughter. Her name was Teresa Bell Plunkett. And in November of 1924, Thomas's mother, Sarah Jane Beckleheimer, she passed away in Indiana. In 1925, Thomas and his wife had another child, a third child, and their final child, another girl, and her name is Elizabeth Iva Pete Plunkett. In the 1930 census, the family was still residing in Seattle, King County, Washington. And in 1942, at the age of 57, Thomas registered for the World War II draft. In 1963, Thomas's wife passed away at the age of 76 in Seattle, Washington, leaving Thomas a widower. Finally, in January 15, 1965, at the age of 79, Reverend Thomas Nicholas Plunkett passed away in Seattle, Washington. He raised my grandmother, my granny, who passed away last year, and she used to talk about how he was very proud of his Irish heritage, and he did talk about that a lot, about how our family came from Ireland, the Plunketts. If you don't know much about them, you should really check them out. And of course, I'll be doing more videos on them in the future. But he had a really good life, and he served his faith, and he raised his children and grandchildren, helped raise them as well. So I'd say he had a pretty good life, don't you? All right, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's going to be a little bit shorter than I had been doing, but I just kind of wanted to highlight some things that happened in Thomas's life. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys later.